All right, good morning. Welcome to the December 5th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission. We'll call this meeting to order at 9:35 a.m. Rosalie, ready for attendance?
Chairman Arnett. I'm sorry, Commissioner Arnett. Commissioner Curley.
Here.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen.
Here.
Commissioner Lawrence. Commissioner Montoya.
Here.
Commissioner Milhaven.
Here.
Commissioner Schlosser.
Here.
Vice Chair Lindblom. Chairman Hernandez.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Rosalie. Moving on to announcements. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with the open meeting law, Arizona Revised Statute 38-431. Agendas are available within 24 hours of each meeting in the Maricopa County Planning and Development Office and are also available on the Planning and Development website 1 week prior to the hearing at www.maricopa.gov/planning. The staff reports prepared for each agenda item shall become a part of the permanent record for each case. With respect to hearing process, cases will be considered in the order they appear on the agenda unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. For each case, the applicant will be given a set amount of time to present. Anyone wishing to speak on a particular case shall fill out a speaker's card for in-person attendance or raise your hand within GoToWebinar. The amount of time allowed for speaking shall be at the discretion of the commission chair. Staff will provide the chairman with the names of persons who have registered and noted desire to comment and those registered participants who have raised their hand. The chairman will call on each named participant one at a time. The chairman will conduct the hybrid in-person and virtual public hearing according to the bylaws and according to the rules established by the chairman regarding public comment. Votes will be done by roll call vote only. The chairman will verbally identify the specific members responsible for all motions and seconds. All right, minutes. Staff has circulated the minutes from the October 24th hearing. Are there any comments from the commissioners? All right, hearing no comments, we will consider the minutes approved. Moving on to the consent agenda, I believe we have some changes here. The Desert Gems Solar and Storage Project, case Z20240066. Is there anybody here who's in opposition willing to speak? David, do we have anybody online, their hand raised or registered to speak regarding that case?
I'm not aware of anyone.
All right. So with that, then we'll move that item back to the consent agenda. So with that, Darren, we're ready for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the consent agenda will include case number 1 and 2, CPA 2024-001 and Z 2024-039, known as Sun Basin 1 Solar Project in District 4. This is a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation to utilities and a companion zone change to Industrial 2 IUPD with a plan of development for 40 acres at the northeast corner of 363rd Avenue in Narramore and Tonopah. There's no known opposition. The recommendations in paragraph 1 is for approval. I'm sorry, in paragraph 16 is for approval of the CPA case, and in paragraph 17, approval of the zoning case subject to conditions A through H. Case number 3, Z 2024-037, Sun Basin 6 in District 4, a zone change to Industrial 2 IUPD for 80 acres north of the northwest corner of Elliott and Wintersburg and Tonopah. No known opposition. The recommendation in paragraph 15 is for approval, subject to conditions A through H. Items 4 and 5 in District 4, Z 2024, Sun Basin 5, a zone change to Industrial 2 IUPD with a plan of development over 1,112 acres southeast of Elliott Road and 387th Avenue in Tonopah. There's no known opposition. The recommendation in paragraph 15 is for approval, subject to conditions A through H. I believe Desert Gem is staying on, correct? That would be item number 5 on the agenda, case Z 2024-066, known as Desert Gem Solar and Storage Project in District 5. This is a zone change to Industrial 2 IUPD and Industrial 3 IUPD. The former being 4,192 acres. the latter being 75 acres along old US Highway 80 at Patterson Road, both north and south of that intersection in the Gila Bend and Buckeye areas. There's no known opposition other than the one letter that was indicated, but is not present today. The recommendation in paragraph I apologize. In paragraph 19 is for approval subject to conditions A through L. Agenda item 6 has been pulled from consent. That's Camelback Crossing. Will be heard later. And then finally, agenda items 7 and 8 are CPA 2024-002 and Z 2024-041, known as Sun Basin 2 and District 5. It's a comprehensive plan amendment to change the land use designation to utilities with a companion rezoning to industrial 2 IUPD, along with a plan of development for 129 acres east of the northeast corner of 355th Avenue and Narramore in Arlington. There was a letter of opposition that's been retracted. The recommendations in paragraph 15 are for approval of the CPA case, and in paragraph 16 is for approval of the zoning subject to conditions A through H. All right, happy to try and answer any questions you may have on agenda items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8.
Great, thank you, Darren. Is there any questions for staff from the commission? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak regarding anything on the consent agenda? David, do we have anybody online who's has their hand raised or registered?
Anyone online, Chairman?
All right, thanks. Since there's no public interest, we will close the public forum. Is there any discussion for the commission regarding the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Schlosser,
make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
all right. We have a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff by Commissioner Schlosser and a second by Commissioner Montoya. Are there any comments regarding the motion? All right, hearing none. Rosalie?
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval of the consent agenda by a vote of 6-0.
Great, thank you, Rosalie. All right, moving on. Since we had case number 6 pulled from the consent agenda, we'll start there. Z240009 Camelback Crossing Shopping Center rezone. Andrew, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Z240009 is a zone change request from CS to C2 on approximately 3.4 acre parcel located at the southeast corner of Dysart Road and Coulter Street in the West Glendale area. The parcel was zoned CS for a planned Camelback Crossing shopping center in 2002. This portion of the center was never built out until a recent Chipotle restaurant received a plan of development in June of 2024. The applicant is requesting a zone change to C2 to allow for contemporary commercial designs and uses not traditionally utilized in the CS zoning designation. Original zoning approval included conditions not allow access to Coulter Street and to require screening in the form of a low wall or berm. Staff has pulled these conditions forward and has included them in the current rezoning conditions. Staff has received no public or municipal comments to this matter. Staff recommends the commission adopt a motion recommending that the Board of Supervisors approve Z240009 subject to conditions A through H. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions of staff by the commission? All right, is the applicant here today? Good morning, thank you for coming down.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Larry Lazarus, and my address is 206 East Virginia Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona. So as has been indicated, we are requesting a rezone from CS to C2 at the corner of Dysart and Coulter Street. Staff report has indicated that this property's been vacant for 20 years. And the rezoning here today is to broaden the range of uses that are permitted on the property to improve the chances of this property being developed. Rezoning is compatible with the shopping center and is in fact really an extension of the shopping center. The property is separated from the neighborhood by the north by Coulter Street, as indicated on the map before you. The neighborhood to the north was built in 2005 after the shopping center was built, and the neighborhood to the east was built in 2021, again, after the shopping center. There's one row of homes along Coulter Street. These homes are adjacent to a flood control basin to the rear of the homes. The homes to the east are built for rent. They access 128th Street and go generally south towards Camelback. This property will not have access on Coulter Street, and it will only access through the shopping center away from the neighborhood. Traffic is generated by that will be generated by the property are similar to that which will be generated by any retail type of use. And a traffic report will be required as indicated in stipulation number 3 at the time of the actual plan of development. We conducted a substantial neighborhood outreach on this property. Our team spent 2 weeks in the neighborhood. We reached out to not only the commercial properties, but we also reached out to the residential. The homes to the east that are rental homes, representative was contacted. No one contacted us back. They went door to door on the Coulter side. They discussed height, traffic, walls, those kinds of things. Issues that were raised were related to traffic, safety, the homeless population generally in the area. And the one major issue was they preferred to have a 6-foot wall as opposed to the 3-foot wall or 4-foot wall that is adjacent to the Capote. Other than that, we've also been completely transparent with the neighborhood, indicating that it is our intent later on to come in and ask for variance for a marijuana dispensary. That is not under consideration today. That will go to the Board of Adjustment at some point in time. We understand that there was someone who wished to speak as it related to that. Obviously, we'll continue to talk to that in person as related to that other issue, which is, as I say, not before you today. We will weigh in. I'm sure that person will have a chance to weigh in at the Board of Adjustment level. Our request today, as staff has indicated, it's compatible with the surrounding commercial area, the existing shopping center. It's in compliance with the Glendale General Plan and the White Tanks Grand Avenue plan that was approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2003. Therefore, we request that you recommend to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Is there any questions of the applicant by the commission? All right, we will proceed with in-person speakers and then allow those registered online to speak after public comment. We'll allow some time for rebuttal.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on. We have Yang Liu. Good morning, thank you for coming down. Would you please state your name for the record and please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less?
My name is Yang Lu. I'm literally right across street with a commercial property. When you open your door, your garage, and then you see that vacant lot, they're gonna put the marijuana store. And I got my neighbor, Mr. Coffee's here too. And we do not like that store in front of our house. And I got teenagers and I got 2 boys. And there's less than 2 miles. There's a 2 elementary school. One's called the Dreamy Summit Elementary School. There's another one's called the Barbara. So we want, see if hopefully we can turn down that deal. We do not like that store putting in front of our house. It's literally 20 feet across my house. And that's how I can say, you know, and we do not like that dispenser built right across our house, period. And also hopefully they can build a wall between that commercial land and our house. Because literally I took some Photoshop and people, when they made the wrong turn and they drive their vehicle to the bashes on the dirt road, on the commercial land, and there's a residential street and they just make a short turn and cross straight on the dirt and go to the bashes or any of the restaurants. So hopefully they can build a wall to block that. That's all I can say, so. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
All right, so we have another registered speaker, Jay Wilbins Coffee. Good morning. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record and keep your comments to under 2 minutes, please.
Wilbins Coffee, thank you much for the minutes. Yes, I'm here as a result of that drugstore that I heard about to be built or open right in our neighborhood. I work in healthcare, mental health care, and I have to deal with people who have basically been affected by drugs every day. Therefore, I would not want our children to be so exposed to that. Number two, in that neighborhood, we have $1 million houses. And too long ago, they had those abodies houses, which brought down our property value. Number two, we have Chipotle, now right in front of my house, brought down our property value. Now the next one is going to be a drugstore. What next? So those of you who are in position to vote, please, I want you to consider that. If you were to have $1 million houses, you would not want a drugstore next to it. When I was growing up, I used to see drugs in the hoods, but now they seem to be everywhere. But please, reconsider that.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else in person that wishes to speak regarding this case? David, do we have anybody registered online?
Chairman, I have Michael Ortiz online.
All right.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, David. And not to go back over what my two neighbors had just said, I did talk to a representative for the company for the marijuana dispensary, and he did explain that they are planning on putting a 6-foot wall to separate the two neighborhoods. But I live; it'll be literally right across the street from my house, and like Jung said, it's kids, there's schools nearby, and and all that other stuff that they were talking about. But one of my main concerns is there's also a smoke shop a couple doors over from it's the Loving Hut restaurant that's right there on the end of the shopping center, and there is a ridiculous amount of trash from that store, even though there is in the field up against the asphalt from the Bash's shopping center. They have to walk past 2 trash cans to get to the dirt lot, but they're still depositing tons of trash from that smoke shop onto the dirt field. I mean, it kind of seems that, okay, this is a dispensary, it's going to be the same deal, but it's probably going to, even if there is that separation, I mean, is that 6-foot wall going to be all the way to Dysart, or is it going to be one of those like, oh, it ends at the dispensary property, so they just have to walk around in Chipotle to get to our street, and then there it is, you're going to have a bunch of trash on the street. So that's something else to consider in this matter. I think you guys can consider that as well as a big ticket item, because like Mr. Coffee said, it's going to drive down our property values. And that's what I got. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. David, is there anybody else online?
No one else online.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Lazarus, would you like to give you a few moments to provide some rebuttal?
Very quickly. Obviously, we are here to allow the extension of a shopping center. This has been a shopping center for 20 years. This has not been built out. As I said, we were very open about ultimately we would like to go ahead and get a dispensary at this location. However, the opportunity to talk about dispensaries and the separation of dispensaries will be heard at the Board of Adjustment. There's a lot of misconceptions about these types of uses over the years. They are well secured, they are well monitored, they are policed. We have no problem with a 6-foot wall along our side on the Coulter side. But a 3-foot wall now exists on the Chipotle side. We don't know that we can change that, but we could do a 6-foot wall on our side if that will ameliorate some of the issues for the surrounding neighborhood to the north. With that, I have nothing else unless you have any questions.
Is there any questions of the staff? I mean, for the applicant by the commission? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lazarus.
Thank you.
So with that, we will close the public forum. All right, is there any comments by the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Schlosser?
question probably directed towards Mr. Peck. Our charge today is to discuss zoning, right, from CS to C2, not the actual use, is that?
Well, yes
correct?
and no. The difference between the existing zoning and the proposed zoning. The difference between the two zonings is the CS zone does not allow marijuana dispensaries, whereas the C2 does. So if you change the zoning, the questions that were raised would go to the question then of, is it an appropriate permitted use? Right now, it's not, and it would have to be changed. So that is a legitimate consideration because there are differences what you can do in a CS as opposed to a C2.
I guess my question is, we can discuss whether or not a dispensary is an appropriate use.
Yes, any of the uses that a C2 would allow that a CS would not allow would be appropriate for you to consider when you are deciding if you're going to rezone the property or not.
Okay. The next question is, a couple of the people that were in opposition discussed being in proximity to a school and something else I forget, but there's certain laws and ordinances in there about
The
the
ordinance
spacing.
requires.
Oh,
that a
it was also the
dispensary-
smoke shop. They have to be spaced out within so much distance.
I'm guessing the smoke
I don't know
shop
what a
is like a
smoke shop
cigar
is, but-
bar.
Okay,
As a-
I don't know the answer to that, but
So there's no separation for that. The ordinance requires a 1,500-foot separation from a school, but as Mr. Lazarus has indicated, applications do go to the Board of Adjustment to allow variances from that. If the property were rezoned to C2, they could put in a dispensary, but they would have to go to the Board of Adjustment to vary the distance requirement as Mr. Lazarus represented.
and it's
But the only statutory, and it's not, is it a school? Yeah. The only statutory separation is 500 feet from a school, but our ordinance has a 1,500-foot requirement from schools, parks, churches, and adult businesses.
it's further than that or closer than that.
It's further than 500, it's less than 1,500.
Okay, so that's where the Board of Adjustment comes in. Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any other discussion by the commission regarding this case? No, hearing. I'll entertain a motion at this point, if anybody's ready. I guess I have a question for Mr. Lazarus. You guys get this rezoned and go to Board of Adjustments. and the Board of Adjustments does not allow this variance, is there a backup plan to develop this into some other commercial property?
It would be used for anything that could be used for a C2 use. The CS is kind of a general statement as to what can be done. C2 allows more things, just other than just dispensaries. For example, schools can be in a C2. It's not specified in the CS. Churches, or hotels can also occur in a C2 that generally doesn't occur in a CS. So yes, it would allow other uses other than dispensaries that are not allowed necessarily in CS at this point in time.
Thank you. I guess my position on it would be, it's the Board of Adjustments would have to give the variance for a smoke shop on that, or for a dispensary. So, I mean, I would be in favor of the rezone and leave the variance up to the Board of Adjustments and the proper channels to allow that. So, is there any other commissioners have any input on this?
Mr. Chairman, this is Linda Milhaven. I would agree with you, and I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Z 240009 Camelback Crossing Shopping Center rezone. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Milhaven. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Curley. I second.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of case Z 24009 by Commissioner Milhaven, and we have a second by Commissioner Curley. Rosalie?
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
No.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya, Commissioner Montoya, Commissioner Schlosser,
I'm sort of torn with this one. I was sitting on the City of Goodyear Planning Commission at the time when state of Arizona voted in the medical marijuana laws. We approved the first dispensary in Goodyear. The thing that gives me the stomach ache is just being so close to the school. It just rubs me the wrong way. But with that being said, with the Board of Adjustment being sort of the catch-all here, I guess I'll vote in favor of it.
Chairman Hernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Montoya. Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval of a vote of 4-1.
Great, thank you, Rosalie. All right, moving on. Let's see, case number Z 2024038, Sun Basin 4. Andrew, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Case Z 2024038 is a zone change request with an overlay from Rural 43 to I2 IUPD, IND2 IUPD for the Sun Basin 4 photovoltaic solar energy generation field. This project area is approximately 325 acres and located at the southwest corner of Old US Highway 80 and Cactus Rose Road in the Arlington area. The project is entirely located on Arizona State Land Department property. The land is currently designated as industrial or utilities in the old US Highway 80 area plan, which was amended in 2010. The applicant is requesting deviations to parking, screening, and other minor design-related concerns, such as not counting solar panels as lot coverage. Staff has received a letter of concern from the Arizona Game and Fish Department. The applicant has and continues to work with the department to mitigate wildlife concerns. Staff has received 2 letters of objection from nearby residences. Staff additionally received a petition with 95 names representing 47 known addresses in opposition to the requested zone change. Concerns stated include destruction of natural habitat, urban heat island effect, property values, decreased views, neighborhood encroachment, intensity and frequency of dust storms, and utility rate increases related to the proposal. Staff recommends the commission adopt a motion of recommending that the Board of Supervisors approve Z 2024038, subject to conditions A through H. At this time, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions for the staff by the commission? All right, is the applicant here today? Good morning. Thank you for coming down. If you please state your name for the record.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Carolyn Oberholzer with the law firm of Bergen, Frakes, Smalley and Oberholzer here on behalf of Long Road for the Sun Basin 4 application. And as Andrew just took you through, the project is 325 acres and it is adjacent to Old US 80. It is importantly not adjacent to any single family homes. It is adjacent to the larger Sun Streams complex that Long Road has been building out over the past several years. It's a $2 billion investment. Most of the power generated from these solar fields goes to APS. The project, and if we could, Andrew, I don't have the clicker to advance the slide. Thank you so much. This graphic just shows you the larger Sunstream and Sun Pond complex that Long Road is building out. This project is at the far bottom of the slide, and that 325 acres is directly adjacent to that purple area, which is operational today. This is all on state trust land, and the state land department has authorized the application of solar in this area predominantly due to the proximity of Palo Verde, the substations, and all the transmission corridors. As state trust land, it is not private land. It is managed for the benefit of the beneficiaries, of which there are 13 designated beneficiaries of state trust lands. This land in particular, and most of the land around it, is the K-12 Common Schools Fund. So revenues generated from these leases goes to that fund, which helps to fund state schools. So it's very different than private land in the way that it's managed. The opposition we have talked with through the course of the projects. There is a future application that's coming before you, Sun Basin 3, that's up in the right-hand side of this graphic. That is more proximate to the residents that live in Arlington. However, this site, and if we could advance the slide, 2 slides then, one more, another one, one more. Oh, maybe one more. Thank you. And then just, that's the blue area on this graphic that shows you all the land in this vicinity that is state trust land. So the concept of the land department is it receives applications from solar groups, and then the applications are processed to facilitate the change to solar. In a previous application, this land was designated as industrial in the comprehensive plan. So we're here before you today to add the IUPD, which would limit the uses to solar, not any other industrial uses. And solar is a very low intensity, low water use. The panels at full tilt reach about 14 feet. They are not at full tilt most of the day. There is separation provided from wildlife corridors, drainage corridors are maintained. Our plan of development shows retention on the east side of the property to increase the distance from Old US 80. So the feedback mentioned by staff from Game and Fish has been incorporated into the plan of development design, and that will be continued to be confirmed as we go through the approval process. But for this case in particular, there are no adjacent residences. There is one adjacent home across US 80, it's, pardon me, not adjacent, there's an intervening property in between. And so there isn't any additional buffering that's proposed in this application other than the standards that have been mentioned. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commissioners have.
Great, thank you. Excuse me. Is there any questions for the applicant by the commission? All right, we'll proceed with in-person speakers, then allow those registered online to speak, and after public comment, we'll give you some time for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's see, Danica Camp. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record and keep your comments to under 2 minutes, please.
My name's Danica Camp. I own a property, well, a few properties in Arlington. We have one actually right across from Old 80, which will be kind of the one that she's talking about. We have planned for years for our kids to live here in the future. My daughter wrote this last night. She's 17, so I'm going to read it for her. My name is Briley Camp, and my parents wanted to share my thoughts on changes being made around our home and to our community. At the time, I didn't have the words, but upon not only thinking, but truly understanding what this change means for not only my life now, but my future, and potentially the future of my children, I decided I'd like to share this with them. And if they feel that this is substance enough, maybe even you today. Even if I cannot physically stand before you, I am speaking not just as a concerned individual, but as someone whose life has been deeply rooted in this community for the past 17 years. As a young person, I've watched Arlington shape who I am and come to understand how important it is to protect what we hold dear. While I may only have a few minutes to speak, I believe this moment is crucial because the future of our home, our family, and our community is at stake. The proposed installation of solar panels here is not just a matter of land use, it's preserving the way of life that is unique to Arlington. I want to express with all the emotion and conviction in my heart why these changes, these solar panels, are a grave mistake for our community. These panels will consume land that has served as a backdrop for so many of our cherished family traditions, from horseback rides on the weekends to camping trips under the stars. This land is not just dirt, it's part of who we are. Once this land is taken away, those memories will be lost. Our future generations and will never have a chance to experience what we have. Is that my time up?
No, you can keep going.
I simply don't understand how they will survive. This plan is implemented. The wildlife loss will be irreversible and devastating. The land in Arlington has been part of our community since the beginning. It has seen families grow, generations thrive, and memories being made. The breathtaking sunsets, the wide open spaces, you can hear the wind, the sounds of the birds. They all create a connection to the land that cannot be replaced by metal, solar panels, and waste. What will remain if this plan moves forward is not the Arlington we know and love, but a wasteland of industrial land that offers nothing to our community. I stand here not just for myself, but for the future, my children's future, and the future of every single person who calls Arlington home. I cannot imagine raising my children in a place where they can no longer enjoy the beauty of the desert, the vastness of the land, and the peace that comes with walking along the trails we've walked for years. And it goes longer, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Just that's how we feel.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next we have Cammie Hansen. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record and keep your comments 2 minutes or less.
My name is Cammie Hansen. So I will just read it. Sorry, I'll get a little emotional. This is very personal for all of us who live out there. Hello, my name is Cammie Hansen. I'm a 20+ year resident of Arlington community. My husband and his family are 40-year residents out here. We have raised our children and made our home here. I'm here today to express my opposition to the Sun Basin 4 solar plant in my community. I recognize the vast majority of the Sun Basin 4 will be located between already existing solar plants and natural gas plants. However, a portion of that proposed solar plant will be extended out to Old US 80, which is a historic scenic corridor. US 80 was originally part of the Dixie Overland Highway and began in Savannah, Georgia, stretched across the south and ended in San Diego. This route also currently takes you to Gillespie Dam, which is a historical site that a multitude of people like to visit regularly. It is a major draw for our small businesses out here. I just ask that you use your common sense. Please do not wreck the beauty of the natural habitat that is visible as you travel out and on these historical sites. This community has gladly accepted power. We recognize it's a necessary thing in life. We just ask that you ensure that these unsightly solar plants are not visible from the historic Old US 80. This is all state land trust and is being used for this project. As I understand, the purpose of this land is predominantly to benefit schools. We only have one school in the Arlington area. It is well run and well funded. This is something the community is not in favor of. I humbly ask that you take into consideration as you make your decision, and I thank you for your time. These solar plants are surrounding us, and it is absurd and just heartbreaking to see everything that I raised my kids do and see all of it just disappear. And they are so unsightly. Sun Basin 3, which they will be bringing up before too long, is literally across the street from my home, and 3 bus stops will be staring at that as they go to school every day. I just want you to consider this is not just barren land. These are families that have lived there for generations and want to continue to live there for generations. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anybody else here in person? David, do we have anybody online who's registered to speak?
There's no one online.
All right. I will allow a few moments rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and to the members of the community that came down today from Arlington to speak on this case. Andrew, or whoever's running this, could we advance the slide one more? Thank you. So Sun Basin 4, as you can see, Ms. Hansen just referenced that it's adjacent to Old 80 and that they're concerned about the views from Old 80. As we already touched on, the state trust land is not public land. It is not land that is available for recreation without a recreation permit. And the land department ultimately does have a fiduciary responsibility to its beneficiaries to manage the land to maximize the revenues. But that doesn't mean that we can't be good stewards of that land. The land department absolutely requires it in their leases. And so, as I mentioned, we do keep corridors open for wildlife. And we also provide for fencing that allows for the passage of wildlife. But to that end on the fencing, I would like to offer, Ms. Hansen mentioned specifically the view from Old US 80. As you can see from this map, we aren't directly adjacent to Old 80. There's still adjacent trust land that occurs on both sides of US 80, but we would be happy to stipulate that the fencing that is along Old US 80 include slats so that the fencing is not transparent, if that is something that the commission would like to add today.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We can discuss that and add that stipulation if necessary. Is there any further questions or comments for the applicant from the commission? All right, hearing none, we will close the public comment or public forum. Anybody from the commission like to have any comments, discussion on this case?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Curley. It seems like every week we're reading headlines or news stories about the power grid struggling. And, we've talked about this on prior commission hearings, but, as the temperatures are increasing, Arizona's population is growing very rapidly. There's data centers, TSMC, and the list goes on. And so the stress on the systems, has certainly been increasing. And, I think these kind of projects are essential to, as the applicant had mentioned, the power here is being funneled over to APS. And so I think projects like these are essential to help, continue the growth and support the power grids that are, powering the growth here in Phoenix. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Curley. Is there any other comments from the commission? Commissioner Schlosser?
Mr. Chairman, as everybody knows, I struggle more so with battery plants than with solar plants. And I just struggle with these things, but I echo the comments of Commissioner Curley. And in this particular location, as the applicant stated, it's next to substations and transmission lines. And I don't think she mentioned it's next to the largest nuclear plant just south of there. And there has to be a place for this stuff because there's a definite need for it. We sit here every other week, mostly of opposition of people that have new subdivisions coming up next to them. And it's sort of the same situation. And so we got to make these tough decisions on what's the appropriate use and what's not the appropriate use. And in this case, I'm a born and bred Southwest Valley boy, but there's just a need for this type of use out there, and it's an appropriate use for the area there. It's just the right location. So with that, I'm in favor of approving this.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Schlosser. Is there any other commissioners who have any comments regarding this case? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Schlosser,
make a motion to approve case number Z 2024-038 as presented by staff, but also including the slatted fencing is the applicant's suggestion.
so what is the last letter of the stipulations right now? H is the last one, so what would be
Yes, sir.
next? I? So can we add a stipulation I that the eastern fence line of Sun Basin 4 will have to have a slatted fence? Okay, so we have a motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Schlosser with an additional stipulation I for a slatted fence along the eastern border. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Curley, I second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Curley. Are there any comments regarding the motion? All right, hearing none. Rosalie?
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 5-0.
Great, thank you, Rosalie. Right, moving on, case Z 2024035. Paola, ready whenever you are.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Agenda item 10, KC 2024035 in Supervisor District 2 is a request to establish a special use permit for a cemetery to serve as an accessory use to the existing church known as St. Ignatius Orthodox Church in the R135 zoning district. Next slide, please. The site is located at the northwest corner of Hermosa Vista Drive and Usury Pass Road in the Mesa area. The proposed SUP site is for 41,548 square feet of a 8.7 acre parcel, which is a portion of a 2-parcel site that is used as a place of worship, which is allowed by right in the R135 zoning district. Next slide, please. The SUP site is proposed at the southwest portion of the parent parcel north of the church building. The site will be screened by a proposed 6-foot CMU wall that will be behind a 20-foot landscaped buffer in order to provide appropriate screening to the neighboring parcels. The church is not proposing any commercial aspect to the cemetery. It would only be available to current and future generations of the church, and therefore a slow growth of the cemetery is anticipated. 2 separate burial areas are proposed as shown in the next slide. 24 plots will be reserved for priests and deacons and their families, and 284 plots are reserved for church members and their families. The applicant proposes to operate the cemetery during daylight hours when the church site is typically open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Burials will not operate during regular church services or other scheduled events. The site is located within the City of Mesa planning area. The applicant contacted the city for a review. The city confirmed with the applicant there are no concerns with the proposal. Staff received 1 letter of support and 2 letters of opposition. The letters of opposition state concerns with the proposed use, devaluing the surrounding properties and being a nuisance to the neighborhood. Staff also received a cease and desist letter in representation of 2 property owners. Staff notes the cease and desist request is a civil matter and not a zoning matter. The property owners represented were encouraged to submit any concerns or comments to staff, but to date, staff has not received any additional opposition. Staff is supportive of the proposed use as the location for the special use permit is appropriate and it serves as an accessory use to the church. A cemetery is compatible with lower density residential areas and preserves a natural desert landscape. The proposed use will be developed slowly, unlike a public cemetery where burials take place frequently. Due to the permanent nature of this type of facility, staff is comfortable granting the SUP without an expiration date and recommends the commission to adopt motion to recommend approval with conditions A through H outlined in the staff report. At this time, I'm open to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions by the commission for the staff? All right, is the applicant here today? Good morning, thank you for coming down.
Yes, hi, my name is George Everland, professional civil engineer, Everett Allen Group, 6300 East Cave Creek Road in Cave Creek. And I'm here to represent the applicant for the project. The vicinity map, let's see. Vicinity map shows the location that was described by the staff, which is right on U Street 2402 U Street Pass Road, just a little bit south of McDowell Road. Next slide. This is a land use map that shows that this is R135 zone. It's surrounded by R135 and also various PUD developments of smaller lots in the city of Mesa. And there's also just to the northeast, Usery Park Mountain Reserve Park area. Next slide. This shows the parcel outlined in red, and which is 8.71 acres. And the shaded area is the SUP area, which is 0.95. So it's less than 1 acre or around 11% of the total parcel. Next slide. This shows the, again, the entire site on an aerial, and it shows all the existing facilities and parking that are on the site to date. We'll discuss that in a little more detail with an enlarged view, but our access is from Usery Pass on Hermosa Vista Lane and the private drive, which also services 13 other single-family dwellings, and then a drive that comes off of Hermosa into the church property, which is all existing. Next slide. This is like an enlarged view of showing the entire site. The kind of bluish shaded area is the actual proposed cemetery. You can see in the grayish area, that's existing parking, which is 124 spaces. There will be no changes or additions to the parking or access or drives to service the proposed cemetery use. As indicated, it will be used during other times that the church is operating during daylight hours. As you can see also on this, because it's kind of hard to see, I guess because of the scale, but there's various uses such as a basketball court, a playground, some other recreation facilities that are down in the kind of the southeast corner, or I guess that would be the north east corner, closer to Usery and McDowell, down in that area there. The existing building coverage, there's a church, there are several classroom buildings, a couple shade structures. The total building coverage on the site is 4.8%. The only addition will be a 200 square foot maintenance building for the cemetery. That's the only structures that will be constructed. Okay, next slide. Give a little history of this site. The Trinity Foundation developed this site in the 1970s. And here is a photo from 1976 that shows several buildings on the property that they developed for religious uses. Next slide. This shows a photo from 2000. In 2019, the Trinity Foundation ceased operations and gifted the site to the St. Ignatius Church Group. So you can see in 2000, the buildings pretty much as they exist today are all present on the site. So the site was developed before 2000 and pretty much in its current condition now as far as improvements. Next slide. That's a 2022 aerial photo that shows basically the same as the 2000. It's pretty much maybe other than a couple shade structures, nothing new was constructed. You can see the vegetation, a lot of the natural vegetation remains on the site. They've preserved the site wherever possible with the existing vegetation that's there. Next slide. This is a 3D rendering kind of from the front. The church building is here. And this is give you an idea of the vegetation that's there physically, what you can see. The cemetery would be back behind the church area. But this gives you just kind of a perspective of how the vegetation exists on the site today. Next slide. This is the SUP site plan that was submitted. And this shows the kind of enlargement area. So it shows the cemetery, the little smaller cemetery. This is the 280 spaces, the 24 spaces over here for the priest and parish clergy in that particular area. And it shows existing parking. And again, there's no new parking or access drives added to service this facility. Next slide. This is an enlargement of the cemetery area. And as you can see on here, here is the, around in this dark line is the SUP area. That will also be walled in along those, basically along those lines, except for here, the wall is set in 20 feet from the property line where it's adjacent to these houses that exist here. Everything else around it, except for on the, which would be the west side, is all church property, part of their 8 acres. The church facility is here. And the reason that the cemetery is located at this location is actually the church is kind of right down here beyond this circle, that the way that this would function, the reason that they've located it here is in the church would be the viewing or whatever takes place. They would, everything would be pedestrian. There's no vehicle traffic other than maintenance for when they, you know, the cemetery. They would be proceeded, everything is pedestrian on within the cemetery area from the church where they would come out and then have the burial site and you know, viewing or the burial procession out there into the cemetery. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is again an enlargement on an aerial of the site. And again, you can see all the vegetation that's remaining. You know, here's the adjacent houses. The house that's right directly to the west, because north is facing to the right. To the west is Chris Decker, who owns that house with a pool and everything, and he has submitted a letter of support for this application and the project. Out of the 308 total plots, the total area of the cemetery itself is 6,000 square feet or 0.13 acres. So even though this is almost an acre, the SUP, that's for the buffering and the landscaping. And there's going to be just a shallow retention area for the drainage. And the vegetation is going to be remained. It's going to be a very tranquil park-like setting that will take place in there. Everything will be kept low, and there will be no headstones higher than 2 feet. There'll be no crypts. There'll be no, again, other than the one little 200 square foot maintenance building, there will be no other structures built into that area. And then around the side closest to the church, there'll be a view fence. There'll be a 2-foot high wall with a wrought iron view fence on top of that that's facing to the church. And yeah, so again, the 600 square foot of the actual cemetery is 1.6% of the total parcel, the 8.7 acre parcel that it's on. So it's very private, it's very small. The church estimates that there'll probably only be 1 to 2 burials per year. Maybe as people age, it might go up to, 2 to 4 as people get older. But again, it's private. It's for the members of the church and their families only. It's not open to the public, and it's not open during evening hours, only the hours of daylight that the church is open. Okay, yeah, so that would have predicted to last at least 30, 50 years, maybe longer, depending on, again. And again, all church members may not choose to be buried at that location. Next slide. This is a copy of the landscape plan. Landscape plan has been done by Don Campbell, Campbell Collaborative, a professional landscape architect. He's working with the church to make sure this is a park-like, very tranquil setting for almost for meditation, within this area. And again, here's the wall, and outside the wall, there's existing landscaping, trees and all that will remain, and additional ones added to supplement that between that wall and the property line of these properties, which is 20 feet wide. And then inside, there's another 5 feet till you get to the cemetery itself. And the gates will be lockable so that the site's secure during evening hours when nobody's there, so that can't be accessed by people during those hours. Next slide. This is a 3D rendering of the site looking this is the north, and this would be the west side. The red line is actually the property line. So you can see this wall is set back 20 feet from the property line. And there's existing vegetation which will be supplemented. And on this plan, it shows a solid 6-foot wall here. The north side shows on this rendering, which is what was submitted and presented to the Planning Commission, a 2-foot high wall with a 4-foot high wrought iron fence. Next slide. As a result of opposition of a couple of property owners on that west side, just north of the cemetery, the church voluntarily changed that wall on the north side to a solid 6-foot high screen wall in order to block the view from those properties that raise some concern with the facility. So the church would be in agreement to making that stipulation. Next slide. These are kind of the highlights of pretty much what we presented. So in summary, it's small, very small compared to only 1.6% of the site, only 308 sites, which is extremely small for a cemetery. It will last a long time. It's private, members and family only, and will last for 30, 50 years and longer. And that's why no expiration. Obviously, when a cemetery is constructed, you're not going to remove it at a later date. The one thing is no new drives or parking is required, because they will not have a burial during any other event or church service that's going on, so that all the parking, drives, and everything else are adequate to serve the facility with no changes. Very low intensity, the tranquil setting. This guarantees that this area will be preserved essentially forever as a low intensity park-like use. That particular area where the church or the cemetery is going to go, by right now, could be used for high intensity uses without needing a special use permit, such as a playground, basketball court, pickleball court. They could all be constructed there as accessory uses to the church. The church has those uses out closer to Usury Pass Road in order to have those noisy, I'll call it, uses away from the residential homes. So this is a very, very good use, in our opinion, for that particular area because it maintains the quietness and the low intensity use. Will operate during daylight hours only. The screen walls and landscaping will provide sufficient buffering away from the residential homes and will maintain the tranquil setting for forever. And again, it's only 11% of the SUP area and only 1.6% of the total parcel that the cemetery itself will cover. Pastor James is here and would like to say a couple words about why the church feels this need is need and desired for the church.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Everland. Yes, James did. Father James, you can go ahead and come up. Please state your name for the record and please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. Father James Coles. I'm the pastor of St. Ignatius for the past 20 years. The church is 25 years old. We just celebrated our anniversary. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. This initiative arises from a deeply felt need within our community, our parish community, to have our desire to have a resting place exclusively for our members. In recent years, burial options in the urban area have become increasingly limited and expensive. As our faith community is rooted in centuries-old traditions, having a place of prayerful repose for our departed loved ones on our grounds is not only practical, but very meaningful to us, to our identity and our spiritual life. St. Paul, writing to the Christians in Rome in the 1st century, said this: if we live to the Lord. If we die to the Lord. So then whether we live or whether we die, we're the Lord's. It affirms the sacred connection. St. Cyprian of Carthage fell asleep in the Lord in the year 268 and said this: when our brethren depart this life, we must not grieve for them as lost, but rejoice they are at peace near to God and the church to which they belonged. Just had this forever. Like, you know, you go to little, like maybe Europe and other places, and of course all around our country, you see graveyards by churches, keeping our loved ones close. So it's not public, it's not commercial. We don't even intend to make money off of it from our own people. Very modest burials. This year we've had 2 of our parishioners die. Very unusual. Normally it's 1. We're a young community, lots of young families, and obviously it's not high traffic, everything that George shared. But what's important to note is the tradition of burying our loved ones close to us, that sacred space. It's thoughtfully designed to preserve the natural environment. It's private, it's secure, and we could have filled this place up with all of our parishioners in favor of it, but we thought probably that would be ridiculous and not necessary. But we're thankful for Chris Decker, who is not a member of the parish, but has the property right next to where the cemetery will be. So I want to just say thank you for hearing our proposal and taking it into consideration. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, let's see, we have another person registered to speak, Clay Workman. Good morning, thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record and keep your comments 2 minutes or less.
Clay Workman, 2420 North Keisha Mesa. I've been a member of St. Ignatius Church for 25 years. I don't actually have anything to add to what George and Father James have just said, just to concur with their remarks. And to reemphasize that we are very sensitive to the concerns of our neighbors. We intend to try to be as good neighbors to them as we can, and that the impact of this cemetery would be extremely negligible to what is currently in place in terms of there is no additional traffic, no additional noise. I will say, with the exception of if we have to dig a grave with mechanized equipment, that would create some temporary noise. Other than that, no additional traffic, no additional noise, and the appearance of the cemetery will nothing identifying this area as a cemetery, we believe, will be visible from outside the boundaries of the church because of the perimeter walls. What you'll see from any direction outside of our own boundaries is the walls, tree line, and roof lines of our buildings. So we believe it's very low impact, and I would ask you to approve the request. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody else here in person who wishes to speak on this case? All right, David, do we have anybody online?
Chairman, I have Brent Bryson online. Go ahead.
All right.
Yes, good morning. My name is Brent Bryson. I'm an attorney. I represent the neighbors, specifically the Taylors and the Holman families. My clients, the Taylors, have been on the property since approximately 2006. I'm not sure how long the Holmans have been there. This is a natural desert environment, and my clients are on well water. And while we appreciate the spiritual aspects of the church and its members and all of that, and we appreciate that they're well-meaning, my clients are on well water, and the thought of 300 and some odd bodies being buried in the ground adjacent to their homes is both unsettling as far as the sanity of the water, the sanity of the water, as well as the devaluation of their properties, as well as the reduction of potential buyers of their properties when the time comes to sell, because not everybody wants to live next to a cemetery. These are people who did not move next to a cemetery to begin with. This is the church trying to add the cemetery after the fact of my clients' purchase and use of their homes. And we ask that the use request be denied. Thank you.
Great, thank you. David, do we have anybody else online?
We have no one else online, Chairman.
All right, great. Since we don't have any other public interest, I'm going to close the public forum.
Chairman, could we rebut something about the consent? Very briefly.
I don't think it's necessary at this time, but thank you. Is there any comments or questions of the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Schlosser?
unless there's other comments from any other commissioners, I'm prepared to make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Schlosser.
It's case number 2024-035 for the record.
Do we have a second? All right, I'll second that. So we have a motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Schlosser of Z 2024-035 and a second by Chairman Hernandez. Is there any comments regarding?
Chairman, this is Commissioner Milhaven. I do have a question.
All right, Commissioner Milhaven.
Thank you. Can anyone speak to the impact on groundwater of the cemetery?
Yeah. Well,
Mr. Chairman, I believe that was probably what the applicant wanted to rebut. I will say that cemeteries are regulated by the State Department of Health Services.
Okay. Yeah, so Darren just explained that it's regulated by the Maricopa County Health Services, and they will ensure that
Arizona, the state.
Arizona Health Services, to ensure that all the burials are conducted in a safe and healthy manner.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments regarding the motion? Rosalie?
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 5-0.
Great. Thank you, Rosalie. All right, moving on. Number 11, case Z240005. Nick, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Case Z240005 is a request for a zone change from rural 190 to rural 43. The site is approximately 5 acres, generally located about 1,610 feet west of the northwest corner of 355th Avenue and Dobbins Road in the Arlington area. The applicant is requesting this zone change to enable a minor land division of what is currently one parcel into 4 smaller parcels, each of which would measure just over 1 acre, to allow up to 4 new single-family residences, where only 1 is allowed per current zoning. The site is accessible from the east by way of an access easement along the south lot line corresponding with the alignment for Dobbins Road. As this is a section line alignment, the MCZO requires preservation of 55 feet extending from either side of the section line. Should the zone change request be approved, a future ingress egress easement extending north from Dobbins would provide access to the future lot split parcels. Staff generally does not support a zone change if it would establish a one parcel island of more intense zoning surrounded by less intense zoning. When reviewing these requests, staff takes several factors into consideration, such as who would benefit from the zone change, compatibility with adjacent zoning, the future land use designation, the land uses entitled with the proposed zoning, and whether sufficient utilities and infrastructure exist or are planned to support such uses. The zone change proposed would conflict directly with the purpose of Rural 190 zoning, which exists to regulate growth in what is currently a remote area with limited access to the types of services that would be necessary to support development in a more intense zoning district. Although there is Rural 43 zoning over a quarter mile to the east, the subject site is non-contiguous with that zoning. Furthermore, the applicant has told staff that the purpose of this request is to divide the lot into smaller parcels with the hope that future zoning entitlements, lot splitting, investment, and residential development will quickly follow in the vicinity. This also conflicts with the purpose of Rural 190 zoning to preserve the rural character of the area. Staff notes that no short-term or long-term transportation improvements are planned in the area. There are no commercial amenities within several miles, and the nearest commercial zoning district is about 5 miles away by road. Incidentally, this commercial zoning corresponds with the nearest fire station. The old US Highway 80 area plan does encourage development of neighborhood retail uses at the southeast corner of 355th Avenue in Dobbins, but no commercial zone change has been approved in pursuit of this, and staff cannot justify this request merely on the speculation that commercial amenities will follow. Finally, so long as essential services such as water, sewer, fire protection, police protection, and transportation infrastructure remain sparse, any zone change that encourages higher residential density is not going to be conducive to orderly growth and sustainable development in Maricopa County unless plans for improvements to said services are clearly and credibly articulated in the project narrative. For the reasons discussed, staff recommends the commission adopt a motion recommending that the Board of Supervisors deny Z240005. However, if the commission chooses to adopt a motion to recommend approval, staff offers conditions A through F for consideration. At this time, I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nick. Are there any questions for the staff from the commission? All right, is the applicant here today? No. Do we have the applicant online? All right. Do we have anybody online registered to speak for this case? No? All right. Commissioner Schlosser?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question to staff. You're allowed by right to, this is 5 acre parcel, 5.0 acres.
Yes, sir.
It's 1 unit per 5 acres currently, R190.
It's one primary dwelling for 190,000 square feet, so essentially 4.4.
Yeah, and they're asking to split it 4 times.
Correct.
Okay. So that would be within the R43. It would still meet those standards, correct?
That's correct. Rural 43 zoning would allow for the smaller lots.
Yeah. If they're trying to split it 5 times, because they would need more than the 5.0 acres.
I believe it's 5 gross acres, and if they did a 5 lot split, they would have 5 1 gross acre lots. The easement, when they're doing an unregulated land division, the gross area of the lot counts towards the lot area. So conceivably, if it's 5 gross acres, they could get 5 lots.
But I guess my point is they're legally able to split a 5 acre parcel. They're able to split it up to 5 times as long as it's
as long as
parcel.
As long as it meets the zoning district, and the current zoning district is rural 190, which has 190,000 square foot minimum lot area. So they can't split that. They can't legally split that parcel today.
That's why we rezoned it to R43.
Correct.
Yes. But they're within the, I don't know if it's state law or whatever, but it's 5 lots split.
Regardless of zoning, state law allows unincorporated counties. You can have an unregulated land division up to 5 splits, a 6 split.
40 acres.
As long as anything is under 36 acres, you can have up to 5 splits. So that doesn't necessarily have anything to do specifically with the zoning, other than The splits that are created have to comply with zoning.
Yeah.
Or they're unbuildable.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody was clear with that they could split it to 4 times and it's just a matter of rezoning it to the R43, which is 1 unit per 1 acre, 43,000 square feet.
That is correct. If they split it today, they will not be able to obtain construction permits without getting a rezone. They understand they can develop this parcel
With
today.
one unit.
Right, but and they can do their unregulated land division, but it would be an illegal split without meeting zoning standards.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. I guess we'll close the public forum because there's nobody here to speak about this case. I guess my thoughts on this, I understand why the county recommends a denial on it. However, it's only a handful of lots away from RU 43, and I would have no problem recommending approval for this case. So that's just my 2 cents. If anybody else from the commission has any comments.
Since that's what they're requesting and it's 4 units on 5 acres, like 1.25 acres per lot, I don't have a problem with that either.
All right. Is there any other comments or questions from the commission? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Schlosser?
I feel like I'm making all motions today.
I don't know.
An emotional day. Make a motion to approve case Z240005 as presented by staff with conditions A through F.
All right, great. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second. This is Commissioner Curley.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval, case Z24005 by Commissioner Schlosser and a second by Commissioner Curley. Are there any comments regarding the motion? All right, hearing none. Rosalie?
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 5-0.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 12, case Z2023100. Daniel, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. Case Z2023100 is a special use permit major amendment for an outdoor event venue in the Rural 43 zoning district and consideration of revocation of SUP Z2019024 in the Rural 43 zoning district. The site is located at 16740 West Pioneer Street in the Goodyear area, Supervisor District 1. The site is approximately 2.28 acres. The applicant is requesting a new special use permit to amend and supersede an approved special use permit for the Caseta Small Event Venue, now rebranded as Rancho Viejo, which was approved by the Board of Supervisors on January 13, 2021, per case Z2019024. To resolve a verified zoning violation V202102065 for noncompliance with the conditions of the original SUP approval, the property owner is seeking to amend the conditions of the SUP and business operations so that they will allow amplified music, extended operation hours, and increased capacity. The facility has been operating and holding outdoor events without obtaining and or completing required commercial construction permits. The slide with the site plan comparison, I believe, will show the new site proposes to remove a required on-site retention basin with no adequate on-site retention proposed. The next slide shows online advertisement for the venue, showing business operations with live bands, amplified music, extended operation hours, and unpermitted construction. There are numerous public complaints regarding the extensive use of the outdoor venue in a rural residential area that has resulted in a direct impact to the rural character of the neighborhood. Code compliance has also been receiving numerous calls regarding the use, dust, noise, etc. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has reported and documented extensive noise complaints for the venue's address. Opposition has submitted 2 victims reports and Sheriff's Office response logs that correspond that correspond with complaints sent to staff regarding the venue's operation. Staff considers the use to have expanded in scope and intensity beyond the description of a small event venue as originally proposed. Staff considers this use to be no longer appropriate at this location and recommends the commission motion for the board to deny this SUP major amendment Z20231000 and to revoke special use permit Z2019024. Happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Is there any questions for staff by the commission? All right, hearing none. Is the applicant here today?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. For the record, Bill Lally with Tiffany Bosco here today representing the applicant. I'll go through a little bit of a few slides to give you some context to the area and then give a little bit more color to the last few years of operation. There's a lot of details in the staff report. If you go to the next slide. I think it's important today to kind of look at the context area. And I know that the staff report has a lot of letters referring to the rural lifestyle in the area. And wanted to make note from the get-go. If you look at this aerial in front of you, what you'll see predominantly, the first thing that jumps out at you other than our white box that says subject property is the Goodyear Airport, literally a couple miles away. And then you can look to the south and you see a lot of white boxes. A lot of the white boxes are over 2.5 million square feet of industrial buildings that exist there today and have existed along the rail. So the area is definitely an area in transition. The more specific area that we're talking about today is still an old county island with large lot residential on it. And so there's I guess a changing of the land use patterns in the area. And so what we'll try to describe today is that as things move forward and more intense uses probably make sense at this corner. If you go to the next slide, please. As I indicated, if you focus really closely into the neighborhood, yes, the surrounding area is large lot residential properties. The property in consideration today is the SUP that was approved as little less than 3 acres, approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2021. It was done during the COVID era. It was a 2019 case. Our office wasn't involved in it. At that time, the applicant did agree to a couple conditions, operational conditions and kind of drainage conditions on the site that in reality, once they got through the process, realized it was probably going to be problematic to continue to operate. So you can go to the next slide. This gives you a closer in image. And what's noteworthy here is, the property that the applicants own to the north as well. So it's not included, the yellow, in the SUP. They do have facilities that have acted as buffers, that are part of the residential property itself. At some point down the road, maybe we would rework the drainage and, maybe put some drainage to the north, because I think that is one of the outstanding issues. But by and large, the property itself is pretty self-contained. In terms of the overall development of the site, it's not overdeveloped. The majority of it is parking, so you're not having parking overflow too much into the street and the neighbors' yards. The next slide, please. Again, as I indicated, a lot of the comments that I think you've read and have been received over the last few years, I think are comments about, hey, the noise coming from these weddings are disturbing our rural lifestyle. And I think what was always anticipated by the landowner when they purchased the property is this area is in transition. If you look at the subdivisions to the west, or actually to the east and to the north in Goodyear, these are typical suburban subdivisions at typical densities. If you look at some of the highlighted boxes, as I indicated, the pink, this is less than a mile away, half a mile away, you have 2.5 million square feet of industrial buildings. The kind of teal parcel is a industrial complex that's coming on board. But most noteworthy, I think, is the fact that Goodyear has acquired a majority of the property at Lower Buckeye for a half diamond interchange. This will be a half diamond interchange of the 303 and Lower Buckeye in the not too distant future. This isn't something that's pie in the sky. Goodyear actually owns the right of way and they're ready for construction. Adjacent to what we've identified on the map as future half diamond interchange on the east side and closer to the red square, which is our property, is a large parcel in Goodyear that has been zoned for multifamily. There's built for rent that's going on right now on the blue part to the north, homes, townhomes, and condos are approved as well. So the area is not just potentially changing in the future due to the freeway, it's changing today with the inclusion of multifamily literally 600 feet away from this property. And so yes, there is some friction happening in this neighborhood in terms of what's happening in the area, what's happening to this east side of Goodyear, and what likely will happen in the area. So I'm not going to belabor the point of some of the history of the case. I will walk through the fact that the Board of Supervisors approved the case, and we can probably just jump to the next slide as well, and kind of get through a couple of these slides. This map, I pulled off ADOT's website, it's going the wrong way. So north is to the left. But in addition to, you'll see the SR30, in addition to the 303 interchange that will be right there next to the property, to the south of it, you will see the SR30 interchange. So this area will be a completely different area. It will not be rural residential. Think about what the 303 north of the I-10 looked like maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when it was all farm fields and small farm homes. The 303 was built, and now there's 20 million square foot of industrial buildings that are on both sides of the 303 going north. So that's likely what is to happen down here. There's already 2.5 million square foot. So the area is definitely changing. If you go to the next slide, you'll see, I think, a map that wasn't necessarily highlighted in the staff report or from the prior cases. This has a little bit of an interesting history whereby staff initiated a revision of the SUP. That prompted our office to get involved, and then we filed for a temporary use permit. So a temporary use permit was approved to continue to allow events while this case was sort of pending. We did outreach, talked to the neighbors, got letters of support for the temporary use permit, which were very similar to the letters of support that they had for the original SUP. So yes, there are some letters of opposition in the case, but there are folks in the area, very close in the area, who have supported this use from day one, from 2019 all the way up to the temporary use permit earlier this year. And I know there was made mention in the case staff report about continuing operating outside or in violation of the SUP. Well, we are under a compliance agreement, and you guys have heard that term multiple times. And the compliance agreement was approved in March of this year that allowed for the operation of events to happen. Now they have to operate under the existing conditions of the existing SUP, which talks to operation and music and amplified music and numbers of people. So to say per se that every event by themselves was a violation is inconsistent with the compliance agreement that we've entered into. Now, if each one of those events has been proven to be out of compliance specifically, that's one story. But just to sort of call up and say, hey, they're having an event, that's a violation, that's not necessarily true. We are still under the compliance agreement. The compliance agreement required us to go through this SUP process in order to change some of the conditions that our applicant felt were onerous in terms of operating a wedding venue. Most notably, the original case required no amplified music at all. I don't know how many weddings we've been to, but I don't think there's a single wedding that you go to where there's not at least a guy in the microphone saying the vows. Well, that's amplified music. You know, if there's any kind of walk-up music on a small speaker box, that's amplified music. And so I think the stipulation was probably meant in good form back in 2019 and 2021. In practice, it didn't really allow for the wedding venue to operate an outdoor venue with zero amplified music. And so that was one of the items that we're seeking to amend. There's a couple other operational items we're seeking to amend as well. They have been very diligent over this last year to get through the process. Staff did indicate that the drainage is still an outstanding issue, and there is a stipulation that was added, and we've worked with staff to basically say it's still an outstanding issue, and we're putting a clock, a timetable on when you have to solve that. Previously, there was a large swale that took up half of the parking lot. The drainage engineer came out and said, well, we can do other smaller swales, or we could have some ponding in the parking lot. If you think about it, these events have once a week, once every other week. This isn't an everyday, all the time kind of thing. So the drainage is an interesting, because we're planning drainage for events that happen every so often, not for cars that are coming every single day. So we're still working that out. There's a stipulation in the case that does require the drainage to be worked out, does require a traffic report and a traffic mitigation plan to be worked out. But again, understand that there's a lot in the staff report about the neighbors and the calls, and be certainly happy to answer any questions. I know there's some speakers here today, and I'd reserve some time for rebuttal.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lally. Is there any questions for the applicant from the commission? All right. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to in-person speakers, and then we'll allow those registered online to speak. After public comment, we'll allow some rebuttal by the applicant. All right, Jeremy Garnier. Good morning. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record, and please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Okay.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Garnier. I'm in full support of the venue. On the map we're actually looking at right now, I am in the property that's directly to the east, so I'm very impacted by the venue, and the items in full support. Miguel and his family have been nothing but outstanding neighbors. Traffic, noise, it's non-existent. The amplified music, when I heard that during the opening, I was surprised. Over the past year at least, the music and noise coming from the venue has been minimal at best. I mean, there's nothing there. He's put in a sound system that directs all the noise inward, and anything on the outside, it's just not, it doesn't exist. And that's not only in my home, but outside. My kids are outside, and when these venues occur on weekends or Fridays, every so often throughout the month, it's enjoyable. It's not a nuisance. The traffic in the area, like it was said, this area was rural. It's really not. There's horses in the area, but as was stated earlier, it's going away. The whole area is changing. Our little county island is special in that it's still a county, and we do have horses and livestock in it, et cetera. But over time, this whole area is going to be just flooded with homes and businesses and et cetera. So I don't understand why having a venue that's taken care of as nice as it is an issue with the county. The dust he's put in rock to control the dust. He waters the ground. There are things in place to address the concerns that were brought up in the past regarding this, and I believe he's addressed all of them. As from a neighbor's perspective, I just don't understand why this is an issue. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Fidel Valenzuela.
Hey, my name is Fidel Valenzuela. I'm a neighbor on the area right there. I'm probably like 400 feet on the south side, where is all the events. In the last year, they've been more quiet. And when we hear music, it's not from them and from the other neighbors sometimes when they have parties. And the traffic about the dust, we have more dust from the UPS, from delivery for food or others, not from them, because I'm on the south side. It's all their traffic for their parties, not on my side. I live in 16740 West Victory Line, and I heard that everything starts changing. Like Asbury and 169, they're gonna make a commercial parking for trucks, big truck, like trailers and stuff, and that's gonna be very close to me, to my house. I don't know, maybe it's gonna be a problem for us with all the noise, but the Rancho Viejo and the venue, they've been so quiet to us. and they've been changing a lot. And that's all for.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we have Francisco, and I apologize, I can't read the last name. Yep. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record, and please keep your comments under 2 minutes or less.
Yes, my name is Francisco Giron, and thank you for the opportunity to let us speak over here. I'm a professional wedding photographer and also a neighbor, and I live just like a half a mile away from Rancho Viejo. And I have had the opportunity many times to work at the site and see the professional or responsible manner that they're handling the noise situation. Okay, as Mr. Jeremy mentioned before, I would like to note that the area is being changing a lot. Now we have a new McDonald's, a new O'Reilly's. There's like about 6 warehouses, more than 300 houses, I'm not exaggerating, or townhouses, everything within the radius of 1.5 miles around Rancho Viejo. And therefore, I said the area is growing, developing, and I would like to see Rancho Viejo to be operating in full. I have a letter from other neighbors. I have 3, but I will read one to make my time short. This is from Kelly Visoso, and she says, I'm writing this letter in support of my neighbor who is currently in the process of applying for permits for their venue located at 16740 West Pioneer Street, Goodyear, Arizona, 85338. I live directly across from them at 16731 West Pioneer Street, Goodyear. And I would like to express my full agreement with their plans and my confidence in their ability to operate the venue in a very responsible way. I have observed the operations of the venue firsthand and have not encountered any issues. The event hostess are well managed and the noise levels are reasonable and considerate of the surrounding community. As a neighbor, I have no concerns about the venue or the events it holds, and I believe that granting the necessary permits will be beneficial to the area. In short, I fully support the venue. Feel free to contact me if you require any further information or clarification. Thank you for your time and thank you in this matter. I have 2 more letters, but.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Brianda Gayton. Gayton? Good morning. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record and please keep your comments 2 minutes or less.
Hi, yes, my name is Brianda Gaitan. I am a neighbor. I am actually, I have 2 years in the Acre community. And there is, I could say that probably every weekend I could hear music, and it's not from Rancho Viejo. It's, you know, other parties like around, especially around this time. And it's never from Rancho Viejo, but it's from, there's even other houses that have parties very often, and I'm sure they don't have a problem with that since they continue to have them. And I, as a neighbor, don't have a problem with it because the only reason why I know of this parties is driving past the houses. With an anchor law, we can, sorry, even being outside with my kids, I have 3 boys, we never like, we could hardly hear the music being outside. Like, I'll admit, we'll even go outside to see if we could hear anything, but we don't. And inside the house, we hear nothing whatsoever. So I don't understand how neighbors could have a problem when this is a lot of acres. Rancho Viejo, it's a really big property. And they are a family business. They are very kind. Like I said, we don't have a long time living in this neighborhood, and they have been nothing but very nice to us. They have, I have a son who has autism, and I just went to see the rancho because I felt like it's beautiful when I seen it online. They offered for me to come by and take my kids to the horses, and, you know, even with the horse therapy and stuff. So they are a very nice family, very family orientated. I have heard many stories of events that have happened in this Rancho Viejo from I don't know, gender reveals to weddings, and they are making very beautiful memories and offering their place for such beautiful events. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you very much. All right, we got Luke Basie. Good morning. Thank you for coming down. If you could please state your name for the record and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less.
Yeah, my name is Luke Basie. I am speaking on behalf of the opposition to not beat a dead horse, not make comments twice for time's sake. I was provided some slides here by the county and felt that it was appropriate for me to address these given our physical and emotional proximity to the venue. Rules are rules and compliance is compliance. And if you'll notice, Maricopa County Sheriff has been involved in many of these calls. This is just a snippet of 1 year. This has gone back to 2018. If you print the reports from Maricopa County Sheriff, it goes back 6 pages to 2018. We want to talk about amplification and times. If you'll notice the date stamp of a party going on in the top left corner until 12:06 in the morning. It says it was quiet, but they could hear a microphone, which is amplified, which is against compliance. The next one is they're parking cars on May 4th on other parts of the property, which is out of compliance. This one then became a danger to not only my property, but a neighbor's. Fireworks were then shot over the venue that scared stabled horses, and remnants of the fireworks then went into my field with $50,000 worth of cattle and haystacks. So the issue there is if a horse breaks a leg, who pays the vet bills? And if cows break out and get on Lower Buckeye and runs into a car, who's sued? This guy. So you can't, if you go to the next one, this is communication between opposition and the county, along with the Maricopa County Sheriff, saying there's another party that lines up with Maricopa County Sheriff report, of which one of them was an assault within the property. That this has now gone on 6 years, according to the middle. You then have the next round of cop calls that in a matter of 4 days, there were 3 different parties. And the last one, the last page, there are 2 misdemeanors filed against the venue owners. And I don't know if you know how this works, but when the cops come out the first time, they give a warning. Okay, they then go on their service calls, which they're spread extremely thin. And then when they come back, then and only then do they cite the venue owner. Okay, and at that point, you can do a victim's report, you can press charges, which they have now had 2 in the last 2 months. Let's not confuse development in an area with then breaking into a county island. County islands have a bubble. So if you have any questions, let me know. My question to you guys is, how much longer are we going to do this? What is it going to take? Is it going to take someone getting injured? Is it going to take someone on the road leaving the venues potentially intoxicated to injure someone around the area with a growing area? What's it going to take, gentlemen?
Great, thank you very much. Is there anybody else? I do want to note that we had 3 individuals that submitted cards in opposition, but they do not wish to speak, just for the people online. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak regarding this case? Do we have anybody online? Oh, okay. Mr. Lally, I'll give you a few moments to provide some rebuttal.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, Bill Lally, representing the applicant. And so I think there's a differing of views, I think, from the neighbors in the area in terms of what's really an impact and what's really not. And I think my impression is that there has been a lot of calls from a few people to the sheriff's office to come out when there's any sort of an event. And again, as a reminder, the applicant has an existing SUP that has certain conditions. If you denied today, that SUP is still in place under those conditions where they could have parties for certain sizes, certain number of parties, no amplified music, at certain times of year. So that's the existing condition today. It isn't about shutting it down. It's about modifying the SUP today to be reasonable. Yes, will people call and will the applicant still have to abide by the county's noise ordinance? Absolutely. And if they stray from these new rules, could they be shut down? Absolutely. SUPs are not permanent entitlements. But my point here is the tolerance level you heard today from a neighbor who lives literally right next door. And he's been at least 3 of the hearings that I've been at over the last year, 2 temporary use permit hearings and this SUP hearing where he has come and said, I'm the next door neighbor. And I understand that there are some on our street that don't like any noise because this is a quiet, I think I heard a bubble, Maricopa County Island. Things are changing. And what we're asking the commission to do today is to modify the SUP in a reasonable condition, to have reasonable conditions to allow for venue events to happen with amplified music and at a reasonable time and a reasonable size. Now, if they then continue to violate those conditions, there are repercussions for the applicant. It can be revoked. But simply calling the sheriff's office every time somebody hears music, sure, you can have 6 pages of calls, but that doesn't always mean every single one of those calls was a violation of the zoning. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect there in terms of evidence in the staff report that all 6 pages of calls somehow from 2018 is in violation of what the compliance agreement today in the SUP says. So I would ask you to approve the SUP today. It's a modification of an existing SUP today that allows them, gives them the opportunity to operate under reasonable conditions and have a reasonable amount of music and ability to operate on the ranch, understanding that they do need to continue to work with their neighbors, all of their neighbors, not just the ones that are here today, but all of their neighbors to make sure that they are good neighbors. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I can't really talk to all of those specific police reports that were referenced. I can just tell you where I think this is headed, which is the area is changing. County islands are not immune to change. You hear cases every single day where a county island is being changed from something low density to something more intense, almost every time you're here. So things are changing and this area will continue to change. 500 feet away, apartments are being built. Build for rent is going up. So things are changing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Do we have any other comments for the applicant or staff by the commission? All right, with that, we will close the public forum. Commissioner Schlosser.
Yeah, I'd like to ramble for a few minutes, if you don't mind. I think I'm the only one in attendance today that was here back in 2021 when we approved this. I think Commissioner Lindblom and Commissioner Montoya who are not here today. I don't know if they were here or not, but it's when the podium was over here. And I think one of the daughters or something in all these cases are sort of blending together in my head. But it's at least in the same subdivision. And when we approved this SUP, I think I was chair at the time, specifically mentioned to I think the daughter spoke on behalf, I honestly can't remember, but whoever I said to, my comments were, hey, you have to follow the rules or you're going to be back here. Yeah, I guess my first thought, and they agreed with that. The second thing that comes to mind is reviewing this staff report and the amount of time and effort and the documentation that the staff has put on recommended denial of this SUP is astounding and is just shocking to me. The gentleman, Luke, up there, nice name, by the way, and hat. But speaking about the sheriff's office And I know for a fact that, I don't know how many today, but the entire West Valley, the amount of deputy sheriffs that are patrolling at any one time are very limited. So with all of these calls, that was shocking as well. Whether they're valid or not, the amount of times that the sheriff's office were called. I don't know if it's the same person that keeps calling or several neighbors or whatever, but for regardless of that, to have the sheriff's office have to come out to this venue time and time again is obviously not a good thing. With that being said, there's so much here that I know everybody wants to get out of here. We could get in the weeds with all these stipulations and these different issues, and I'm always one to try to be fair to both sides and cut to the chase. And I'd like to hear comments and thoughts from my fellow commissioners. But I guess my last thought is, and then I have a proposal to give them one more chance to get in full compliance and to move forwards. What do they call it? A status report, of which they've not provided one, right? To the county yet?
None provided to date.
And they are supposed to do that once a year.
That's right, Chair.
Okay. Lost my train of thought, but I guess the two things that stick out to me obviously is the noise, which is, I've got all kinds of notes here. Condition 4E4, amplified music. To go to 11 p.m. I think is asking for too much. That if we're going to agree to something like that, it should be changed to, I think a reasonable time would be 9 o'clock, even though that's an hour and a half past my bedtime, but I think 9 o'clock would be reasonable, just to throw that on the table for the fellow commissioners. And then 4E2, they were asking to extend the actual time frame from 10 to 11. I think we originally granted them till 10 p.m. and to change that and just leave it, my simple mind says, just leave it at that, make sure they follow the rules. And if they don't follow the rules, they can go through the county process, come back in a year, and they're going to get their SUP taken away from them. And but to do that at this point, I guess my last thought, and then I'll shut up. I think they just need one more chance. It's their, at least partially their livelihood, and I don't think we should cut them off at the knees at this point. Maybe in the future, if they keep doing what they're supposedly doing, that needs to be addressed. But at least at this point, I don't think that's fair and reasonable to yank the carpet out from under them. So that's all I have at the moment.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Schlosser. Is there any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Milhaven. So whether we grant this amendment or not, if they're out of compliance and they go through the process to have the permit revoked, if we give them these conditions, it's the same process to revoke it. So I don't see the risk in excuse me, granting the changes. It seems to me all the comments are around noise, and I'm wondering if we could add a stipulation that says that they should not exceed a certain decibel level at the property line, because these are large lots and I know sound dissipates pretty quickly. And so maybe if we just set a decibel level at the property line, I don't know, 70 or 80 decibels at the property line would mitigate the impact on the neighbors. I was wondering if the applicant might be agreeable to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Milhaven. I know that the sound and the policing the sound has come up in the past with other wedding venues. How is that enforced if that is placed? We can't enforce it.
Mr. Chairman, we've had stipulations like that in the past. However, there has been change in state law that requires decibel levels to be measured by the law enforcement officer. So it would have to be the MCSO responding deputies to measure the sound level wherever, if you do such stipulation. Our code enforcement officers will not be enforcing that, or be the sheriff's deputies.
Okay, so if we put the stipulation in, it doesn't really help or make a difference?
It may change what a responding deputy considers an issue, but today the county's noise ordinance, it's at the discretion of the deputy if that is noise considered appropriate and customary to that land use.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Schlosser?
that hadn't occurred to me what Commissioner Milhaven had said there about the decibel level, or what Darren had just said. But these deputies, I mean, there's city Goodyear police all around there. They're not going to respond to this, I don't believe. It's going to be the deputies. To me, it's likened to if you're going to subject the deputy sheriff to measure the decibel levels at the property line, it's like having them with whatever the machine is to measure the amount of tint you have on your car. So they don't have time for that stuff. Point well taken, but I think at this point, again, my point is we just need to keep it simple, give them their chance to get back in good graces with the county and move on today and see where they're at down the road a year from now, or whenever they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do.
All right, I'll give my 2 cents on this. I know that the applicant has talked about this being a changing and rural life, it's a changing area, and that the opposition is just concerned with the rural lifestyle. Regardless if it's a changing area and we have warehouses, I don't feel like it's prudent to allow a wedding venue within a neighborhood. I'm all for family businesses. I own several family businesses. And I just don't think that a family business of this nature is suitable for RU43 zoning. I think it's a burden on our services right now, and I feel like the applicant has proven time and time again that they don't necessarily have to follow the rules, but that's what it appears like from all the letters and the staff report. And I do want to commend Daniel for putting that staff report together. That was one of the best ones I've seen in my short tenure up here. So, but yeah, those are my comments regarding this case.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Dan Bison. I have a comment or
Yes,
question. Question for staff. It says in here, consideration of relocation of the current SUP. Are you recommending that, or consideration? What does consideration mean? And is that because they have shown that they cannot comply with the current steps?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer. I can speak to that, Commissioner Dan Sice and Commissioners. So a quick summary of that issue. There's a special use permit approved. The operation has never been compliant with the conditions of SUP approval. Never. A big chunk of that is the required construction permits to establish the use have never been completed. We entered into, there's been approved temporary use permits and there's been denied temporary use permits for continued operation. But we did enter into a compliance agreement that allowed them to operate under the stipulations of the previous special use permit that spoke to hours and no amplified music and those issues, without having to complete the required permits for the paving of the parking lot and the perimeter wall. That is why there's a compliance agreement. The allegations from opposition are that they're not maintaining compliance with those previous conditions of approval with regard to amplified music and hours of operation particularly. There was also the fireworks display that was never a part of the approved special use permit. And they had expanded into other parcels that they own. So the applicant has representation, and they have made progress on putting forward this proposal for amending the special use permit. So if you approve this today, it'll be an amended special use permit with different conditions. They believe they can live with those conditions, which allow for more people than the earlier, than the approved SUP allows for some later hours. It allows for more noise. Based upon the ongoing neighborhood opposition, staff continues to recommend denial. Staff, but if you deny the SUP, you still have the existing, if you deny the SUP amendment, you still have the approved SUP. The staff recommendation is that you vote to deny the SUP and to recommend revocation of the special use permit. Council would want me to add that the revocation of the special use permit is actually rezoning back to straight rural 43 zoning, because the special use permit has never been in effect, given that they have never met the conditions of the original SUP approval. So that is where we are today. We are recommending, the staff recommends denial of the SUP amendment and recommends revocation of the original SUP approval.
Great.
So I have a question, follow-up question. So we have accusations of not being able to stay in compliance, but do we have confirmation of that?
But Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Dan Sison, they admitted it by entering into the compliance agreement. Now, like the applicant's representative said today, we're not saying that every event that's happened out there has been a zoning violation, given the fact that we did give them a compliance agreement to allow certain operations. But we do have evidence and testimony from neighbors that there's been amplified music, there's been hours of operation beyond the special use permit condition. So we do have that to indicate that over time, there has been an ongoing non-compliance issue. I can't say it's 100% continuous non-compliance, but it is regular non-compliance.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Dan Sison?
Yes, I have a follow-up on that. This is the issue that I have, is that doing a major amendment to this SUP is moving the goalpost so that they can be inside of those steps. And I'm afraid that that's what we just keep doing sometimes, is just move the goalpost further and further. With my kids, it's called giving an inch, taking a mile. But so that's my heartache with this, and my heartburn with this is because, you know, I am 100% supportive of family businesses and stuff, and I'm part of one also, but I do have to comply by the rules. And so that's what makes this very hard for me, and I appreciate staff answering those questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan Sison. Is there anybody else on the commission who would like to comment? All right, Commissioner Schlosser.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a stab at a motion and see where we get with it.
All right, let it rip.
And again, everybody's comments, I appreciate everybody's comments on both sides of the issue. But my motion would be to approve case Z 2023-100 and amend condition 4E2 from keeping it at 10 p.m. instead of increasing it to 11 p.m. And also amend condition 4E4 with the amplified music.
I believe we're looking at different numbers. I think you're talking about E3 to change it from 11 p.m. to 10 p.m.
I got those off of your staff report.
Paragraph.
I'm sorry. 32. I can't see. Okay. What is it for? 5.
No. So paragraph 32.
Paragraph 32, E.
3.
E3, limited to 10 10 PM instead of 11 PM. And then whatever that was above there again, 30,
That's just paragraph
32. Wherever it speaks about my other issue.
My understanding is you're talking about E.3 hours of operation, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., E.5 all of
9. And I think that's a reasonable time frame, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, council asked that if you get a motion, second that we ask if you have to be. If I may, Mr. Chairman.
My concern is that the applicant has requested specifically modification to 11 o'clock. So you're saying we'll grant it, but to 10 o'clock, so you're denying it unless they agree to modify their application. Right now, it's 10 o'clock. They're asking, we want more people, we want more hours, we want more, these things. That's what they're asking you to do. So you really can't grant the application, but you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. If you do it, then they get what they applied for, unless they agree to change their application now. If you deny it, then what exists today stays in place.
I understand. I welcome the applicant to respond to that.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Lally, representing the applicant. I think if I'm hearing Mr. Peck describe the options in front of you, is you either sort of deny in whole, but you can't approve in part. So unless I agree to it or say that we're fine with it or something to that effect. And Wayne, give me that. Okay. So I think Commissioner Schlosser, you're trying to find a happy medium, and I applaud you for doing that, and I respect that. And I think that's the application that we submitted, we think was the hours of operation that I think makes sense for them. But you're trying to find a happy median today, and I think that's appropriate. And so short of denying the entire application, I think we would prefer to consent to the revised approval and move forward with an approval with revised conditions instead of having a denial of the entire thing.
But to be clear, you're fine with my amendments.
I'm fine with your strategy.
Okay.
So that is your,
You would, Mr. Chairman, if the options in front of us today are deny it all or approve as modified, we'll take the approve as modified.
okay, great.
I'm just trying to
Thank you, Mr. Lally.
move this thing forward here and not get in the weeds. It's complicated.
Okay, so we have a recommendation. We have a motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Schlosser with modifications, paragraph 32, stipulation E3, the time frame from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and E5, change the amplified music to stop at 9 p.m. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that Commissioner Milhaven?
Yes, thank you.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Milhaven. Are there any comments regarding this motion?
I got a question about the motion, Commissioner Dan.
Yes, Commissioner Dan Zeisen.
So I think we're changing theirs is 11 o'clock, right?
Correct.
And we're saying 9 o'clock?
No.
10 p.m. for operation hours and 9 p.m. for amplified music.
Oh. So, okay. All right, I think I understand.
Okay. Any other comments regarding this motion? All right, Rosalie.
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
No.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 4-1.
Great. Thank you, Rosalie. Darren, we have any other matters?
Mr. Chairman, I would be remiss if I did not advise you that today is Wayne J. Peck Esquire's last hearing representing the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Great. That's quite an accomplishment. And it's been I don't know, my 4 years sitting on this board. It's been wonderful working with you, Wayne. So thank you for everything.
Yeah, we appreciate everything.
I understand this is your last meeting as well.
It is, and I don't want to pat on the back, but I've been doing this for 25 years, since January of 2000, on different boards and commissions and committees. Way more than I ever hoped for and thought I would do. And exactly. And I'm one, obviously not to blow smoke, but not only the commission and all the commissioners that have came and went along the way since however many years I've been on this thing, but the county staff and the new county manager, Jen Pekorski, she was the planning director, I think, when I started, and you, Darren, and Rachel, and Rosalie, out of all these cities and committees and everything, you guys are, and again, I don't blow smoke, most competent. The commission's the most thoughtful that I've worked with, the most vocal, but the most thoughtful. I've chaired meetings where I literally, like Eric can attest to, you're sitting up there as chairman and no one has anything to say except you chairing the meeting. So my wife says I'm full of it, that I'm going to do something else, but it's time to pass the reins on to somebody else. So I made a career of boards and commissions. So I'm signing off.
Awesome, man.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Luke, for guiding us for the last however many years here. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the chairman this past year. So with that, is there any other matters? I guess we'll see everybody next year. Meeting is adjourned 11:52. More.